I said I was going to share vulnerable stuff on. Perhaps it's story time. I want to lean in and talk a little bit more about post that I did yesterday around wanting to get smaller, around my body whispering to me that it no longer wants to be as big as it is, that it feels safe and it can drop the weight. I talked about wounds from my past that hadn't been healed, and that in the healing of these wounds, things are starting to shift all throughout my life. I learned a valuable lesson around masculinity and how sometimes how our wounds change our behaviors and what that looks like. I think it's fair to say that you probably know that wounds from our past impact our behaviors in the present moment. Right? We tend to get triggered about things where we act out. Certain behaviors rise to the surface that sometimes are out of character. And oftentimes it's because of these unhealed wounds. And in my journey in healing some of my masculine wounds, what I learned was profound. It was super interesting. And to be honest, it might very well help you with your journey, as the things that I learned surprised the hell out of me. I got an opportunity to see how wounds were creating behaviors in the present moment, and they were behaviors and thoughts and ideas that I never thought were driven by these wounds. In fact, I didn't even know that these wounds really existed. I don't think that I had really acknowledged them. And this is the type of stuff that can happen below the surface, deep in our subconscious, in our lives. And I don't think it's explained very well. I think it's explained often, but I don't know if it's explained. I feel like in personal development, when I first started in personal development, I started getting hip to the language, right? To the language of personal development, to evolution, to connecting, to source, to all of these things that we use, the beautiful universe, the energy. And I started getting drunk off the language. And I think what happens sometimes is that we can go so far with this new language, understanding at a deeper level what our consciousness and what connection to life is. But when we talk that way and other people aren't used to it, it gets lost, right? I know that I've lost people with it. I know that I once was lost when I heard it. And I think what I aim to do now when I share things with you guys is try to cut some of it out, right? I think it's ingrained in me now. So it's a part of what I talk about. And I think it's also important to try to break things down a little bit if we're going to get more people on board with understanding and awareness and awakening their own consciousness, right? Okay, so back to the story. These wounds were wounds of mine that I didn't know. And the reason I want to share about the behaviors, the actions that occurred, and how it dismantled parts of my relationship, how it broke down areas of growth in my business, and how it really held me back, how I held myself back. I want to share this stuff with you because maybe it'll give you an opportunity to then look inside of your life and question some of the behaviors. Are they coming from an unhealed place? How can I track that and how can I change it? So stick with me. I'm going to share that stuff. Okay. So masculine, feminine energy. What's the difference, right? So our masculine, and this is going to be a rough overview, and there's probably going to be lots of critics out there that can just tear this apart and give you the real version, but I'm going to give you my version and then I'll just try the best I can. So stick with me on this. So the masculine energy is very much a protective energy. It's the part of myself that wants to provide, that gets things done, that knows how to take action, that likes to plan, that likes to organize, likes to protect. The feminine energy in me is the visionary, the one that wants to connect to the heart, the one that wants to move from source, that listens to the intuition, one that feels and experiences life and wants to dig deep into that emotional experience, right? The one that's guided from spirit is my feminine energy. I am very strong in both of my energies. I am a deep feeler, right? If you know me, right? I cry easy. I'm an emotional guy. And I love being tapped into my feminine energy. And honest to God, I think that's what gives me this positive kind of zest for life is I'm not afraid to be attached to the feeling of that excitement. I love getting things done. I like protecting, providing, creating safety and security, creating a strong, powerful presence of love and safety. And there was a part of my masculine energy that was significantly wounded that I didn't even know. And that's a separate part because I am really good at getting things done. All those things I listed are part of the strengths of my masculine energy. The wounds were the parts where I hadn't learned, and I hadn't really gifted myself the ability to make myself feel safe. There's a little version of me, a little Danny inside, right? This young 5-year-old that things started to change for him. And then that was when he started to guard himself. And he never really knew how to feel safe with his feelings, which then made him realize he never really knew how to feel safe with himself. He never really knew how to trust himself, which ultimately led to him never really feeling like he was enough. And what I didn't realize was that in my journey, what I had overlooked was there's a section of me internally that hadn't learned how to make myself feel safe. I didn't know how to make myself feel safe in the tension. I didn't know how to make myself feel safe in emotional situations where maybe someone said something that made me feel a certain way, but really it just triggered the wound. And then I acted defensively. I didn't understand this stuff, but there's a part of me that hadn't learned how to make little Danny feel safe, that didn't know how to make myself feel safe. And because of that, I fortified myself on the outside. There was a long period of my life, like during the selling of drugs, where I really was fortified. I didn't let anybody. And since finding personal development and opening up my heart, I've been letting so many people in. I think there's other parts that I didn't realize were unconsciously driven by these wounds. And one of those things was putting on size, being big and strong. But really, if you know the inside of that journey, that was always me chasing something and never really feeling like I had it, never really feeling like I had crafted the best physique, getting close, touching it, falling back, having injuries, going up and down on my weight, but then always chasing. I don't think I ever really hated my body. It wasn't a full self-loathing, but it also wasn't a full level of satisfaction, of fulfillment, of joy and presence and love. I thought that maybe I just hadn't figured out how to love myself. But really what it was is I hadn't figured out how to make myself feel safe. Right? To let me know that it was okay to feel scared, it was okay to feel certain things, and that I was going to be okay. It was okay to feel certain things, to have doubts, to have all these things, and that was okay. I was safe. What was going to happen to me? And when I healed this wound, it changed my relationship. It changed the way I showed up in my marriage. I realized that there were so many areas in my marriage where I was putting up a defensive wall from a trigger, right? Something that my wife would say, and I'll give you an example. Like maybe I take her out to eat or something. Maybe she's just not having a good time at the place that I chose. Then I take that as I'm not enough. What do you mean? You always say, and this is how it would show up, right? Like I don't consciously take it as I'm not enough and I attack her. But if she were to say, oh, I don't know, this place isn't that fun. Instead of just hearing it, what I might do in the past was defend it. Like, what do you mean? Like, you love country bars. Like, you say you love country music. You always talk about how you want to go to a dive bar that has good dancing, or you always talk about how you want to do this. Instead of just hearing in the moment, there's a part of me that's, you didn't do good on the inside. You didn't do a good job. You picked the wrong spot. You're not enough. And I couldn't learn. I didn't know how to sit with that and realize that was a lie. I didn't know how to do that. So unconsciously, that was the program that ran. And on the surface, it was me defending, trying to make sense of it. This is why, mansplaining, right? This is why we're here. This is your doing. Like, you should be more descriptive on what you want. And all those things shifted. This is stuff that has been constantly changing over the years. And one of the things that happened recently was this level of safety that really took hold. And now I feel like, I do want to change my body differently. I want to switch things up. I want to move differently. I feel safe. I don't feel like I need to hold so much size to protect myself from doing the inner work, from taking consistent action and learning why I do what I do, wanting to change the things that I want to change, leaning into the action steps that make that change happen, right? Implementing new habits. Like from doing these things, this is the stuff that comes up. I don't think any of us know exactly what we need to heal. It's more about learning how to get into the muck and stir things up, how to be aware of what's happened, right? No one really knows where these wounds come from until we get in there and start looking around, right? Like I didn't know what was unhealed until I got in there and started looking around. And I kept that door open because that's the thing. We can't close it. If you get in on this ride of personal development, if you really want to enhance your life, if you're listening to all the way to this point, then I'm assuming that you really care about your life. I'm assuming that you want to change things up and really get things firing in a new way. And you can do that for yourself. But let me tell you, this journey is like the spikes when you leave the rental car from the airport, right? If you leave that rental car service, those spikes go up. Once you've gone through, you can't go backwards. If you go backwards, you pop all your tires, right? Personal development is very much like that. Once you enter this game, you can't leave. It's painful. Once you start awakening yourself to what's going on the inside, knowing that you can change things, once you start recognizing that you are limitless, right? And you maybe have already have been playing this game for a long time, just like me. But you also know that there's always stuff to reveal, to heal, right? To move through. There's always another limit to breach. There's always another area of our life that we want to stretch the capacity, right? Because that's what we do. We stretch the capacity of all of these areas and we start to learn by process of elimination what we really want to stick. And if we don't stretch, we won't get to that point. And what will happen internally is we will live in our wounds and we will constantly be frustrated about why we don't have the life that we want. And more often, it's because you never really got clear on what you wanted. You never really moved the pieces of yourself out of the way that stood in front of you that blocked the vision for what you really want. There's these parts of us that are unhealed and they're driving the ship. And we have to get deeper. We have to peel layers only if we want to live at peak. Like only if you know who this message is for, right? It's for the people that want a little bit more, for the people that know that the limits are there only to be broken. And me sharing this story with you is me just saying, wow, after 10 years in personal development, I got clear on this over the year. So after 8, 9 years in personal development, I'm still learning so much about myself, and it is creating massive transformation in real time. Our behaviors, the things that stand in our way, all these little habits and things that we do that block us from getting to our next level are just rooted in the wounds. And when we go in there, we start digging around, we start healing them, the surface changes, our life changes. And this is available for anybody. And this is your invitation. The story for you today was a vulnerable post. I hope it's helpful. I love you. If you made it this far, thank you very much. Send it to a friend that might need it. Hit the subscribe button. I want to give away as much valuable information for free. And I'm going to keep doing this no matter what. And if I can do this and enough people hit that subscribe button, I might be able to do this for forever. I'm Danny Diaz, and this is the Peak Life Now Show. Much love. Peace.